So I last ended the discussion of pre-Islamic Mecca and the Kaaba, the place of worship for the deities of Arabian pagan gods and so forth. And let's see, oops. This was the Kaaba. So you have the stone, and then you have the sanctuary. To this day, Muslims, go around and around it. Now these idols were all removed, but this has been there the whole time. Okay, so that's just kind of give you a visualization. All right. So this was a society that Muhammad was in, and he claimed, he would go out into the desert and meditate on his own. So the traditional stories go, and he ends up having an experience claiming that the angel Gabriel, the same angel in the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, Jibra'il, spoke to him, and he hears Iqra, recite in the name of your Lord who created man of a blood clot. Recite, and thy Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he knew not. Okay, so this is the first revelation. Later, I'm going to go into discussing a little bit about the Quran and the complexity of picking up the Quran and reading it on your own and understanding it, because chapter 96, 1 through 5 is where the first revelations to him is given in the traditional narrative of the Prophet's life, and you wouldn't know that by just having the Quran, reading it, okay? But anyway, so this is his revelation. This is supposed to be the cave. So he gets this revelation, he's startled, and Khadija is recorded to become his first believer, his wife. Okay, and she believes in him, and he claims that he's coming in the name of God, Allah. Okay, Allah is the God of the Jews and the Christians. I have an Arabic Bible, and Allah is the word used for God, okay, in it. And so he is claiming that he's coming in the name of the God of the Jews and the Christians. And these characters that are in the Old Testament and the New Testament are seen throughout his revelations. They're mentioned, okay? So Abraham is Ibrahim, Noah is Nuh, John the Baptist is Yahya, and Jesus is Isa al-Messiah, Jesus the Messiah, okay? Now, anytime somebody claims to be a prophet, I mean, we can imagine right now somebody claiming it. I don't think that anybody now claiming they're a prophet affected society that much different than back then. The majority of people kind of scoff it off, right? So they did not believe in Muhammad's message, and they wanted to get rid of him. He was also condemning their behavior, their corruption. I mean, so he's stirring things up. And so eventually, finding some persecution, him and his followers flee. Some of his followers go to Ethiopia. But these are going to be faithful to the cause, and they're going to surrender themselves to God, and regardless of what their treatment is. And so Islam means surrendered to Allah, or to God. Hence they're called Muslims, okay, surrenderers. Okay. All right. So when Muhammad and his supporters, such as Abu Bakr and his cousin Ali, they flee here at 622 CE. okay, to Yathrib, which is going to be called Medina. Medina just means the city. So, you know, like people who live in the Central Valley, they live near San Francisco and they just call it the city sometimes. That's what Yathrib is going to be called, Medina, the city. Okay, um, and he's going to flee there, and he is going to be invited to be a mediator between conflicting tribes. This is kind of a normal situation, um, where an outsider who seems to have a good character and personality can maybe help settle disputes. Okay, in the way that like they're not invested in either side. And so Muhammad is seen as this odd rabble rouser in his hometown. When he comes with his band of followers into Yathrib, Medina, he ends up really displaying a certain prowess and ability to mediate, which is going to give him prestige and to be really viewed very seriously. Okay. Also, at this time, I'm going to mention that the Muslim calendar actually, just so like Christians make everything, it's supposed to revolve around before Jesus was born or after. When he flees at this time, at 622 is year one for the Islamic calendar, and you'll sometimes see AH in a different time if you look at Islamic writing, and it means after the Hijra, or BH before the Hijra, okay. The Hijra, sorry. And so, something to take note. Okay. And so what's going to be interesting as he's developing this community is he's dealing with tribal groups, and he's going to try to link a concept of the ummah. The ummah is the community that is spiritually based, not clan based. This is the ideal, okay? And so this concept within Islam is the hypothetical. So just like Catholicism means universalism, for Muslims, ideally you're a part of the global ummah, of the Islamic community. And ideally there would be a lot more unity than there is now. But in the ideal, it's very unified outside of race and so forth. So the call to prayer was made by Bilal, the freed African slave. And again, I'm just pointing out that this idea of the totality of a spiritual community as opposed to skin color and all this kind of stuff is formed here. Okay. Now, there's even a constitution in Medina that respected peace and community, peace and security in the community, security for women, to try to stabilize intertribal relations, and basically allowed religious freedom. It's kind of interesting in this case here. Okay, now there's going to be some controversial things that are going to come up, which I'm going to discuss later in relations to Muhammad and the Jews and Christians. But this is what we are informed of in the records, traditions written about him. I'm not going to go over all the battles, but essentially the build up to the story, and I'm cutting out a lot of things because I want to get to more of the meat of some ideas. For Muhammad, for Muslims, he doesn't do any miracles. He doesn't walk on water, and he doesn't resurrect the dead. But what he does is he has success, which shows his blessing from God against very serious odds. And the one miracle that Muslims are going to say he has is his revelations, the Quran, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. But I just want to say that there were these important battles that many Muslims know, that between 624 all the way to 630, him and his followers in Mecca, who are also going to end up fighting forces from Mecca who are wanting to kind of root him out and weed him out. There are going to be some successes here, some failures there, and ultimately he is going to prevail. Okay, and I will leave it here and we'll move on to the next section.